If you can remember an instance there, and then look at, well, how did your physical body respond? Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Yinning at Life podcast. I'm your host, Kimberley Roberts of SolefulYin, and I'm so freaking excited to be here. Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm always excited to be here to dive into conversations that are on my heart, but that I know are on yours, that you're just dying to get some introspection and contemplation vibe from it. And so today's episode, I want to talk about finding courage. And you know, when they talk about courage is within, well, I really want to explore that philosophy and give you a different perspective on what I believe courage is and where it comes from. Now, of course, you are totally welcome to agree with me on this, and you're also totally welcome to not agree with me. It's okay, but I love to share my perspectives on things because sometimes that gives you another way of looking at it. It's almost like I'm giving you another set of glasses to put on, and you're looking through a different lens. And that's, I would say, probably one of my biggest intentions with my podcast is to give you a different lens, a different view on how you can look at things. All right, so let's dive in. Now, of course, I'm going to tie this in with Chinese medicine, and I'm going to tie this in with Yin Yoga, of course, because, you know, that's my jam, that's my thing. So here's the thing, courage comes from within. So in Chinese medicine, courage, the emotion of courage, okay, that energetic emotion of being courageous, of being able to take risks, to, you know, taking the inspired, aligned action towards whatever it is that you desire, comes from the lung organ system, okay? So if you think about Tarzan for just a hot second, you know how he would beat his chest crazy, basically beating his thymus gland? Was to get the courage to be able to go and do whatever it is that he needed to do, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out there and beat your chest like a drum the next time you want to go and do something that you think requires some courage. But what I want you to think about is that the energy of this emotion, courage, we hold it in our lungs. And in Chinese medicine, each one of our organs has a primary emotion associated with it, okay? And you can go to episode number 4. It's actually my number 1 ranking episode across all platforms. It talks about our emotions and the link between the meridian channels in Chinese medicine and the link between the organs to each emotion. It's a really amazing episode that dives into that. And of course, I'm going to be diving in deep to all of the different organ systems in our body and each individual emotion that's associated with them in future podcasts. But today I want to talk about courage. So if you think about it, the energy of that emotion is held in your lungs. Now, in Chinese medicine, our emotions are not good, they're not bad, they just are. They're just indicators of where we are at, okay? That's all it is. But here's the thing. A lot of us are afraid to take courage, right? To take the next step. And why is it that we're afraid? Well, I'm going to give you a few different reasons that I think why we're afraid. First of all, we're afraid to take that next step, to have the courage to move forward with something because it's scary and unknown what the answer and what the outcome is going to be, right? Like, we don't have a crystal ball sitting in front of us and we're going, okay, I'm going to apply for that next level position in my corporate job and I'm going to get it and I know what it looks like. We don't have that crystal ball in front of us. I'll tell you, man, if we had a crystal ball in front of us where we could see everything that was going to come up, well, I'm not necessarily sure that actually would be a good thing. But, we can't see, we can't forecast. We can certainly put out an energy of what it is that we want as an outcome, and that's what you focus on, is the desired outcome of what you want. But there's always an element of uncertainty, right? And with uncertainty, it's scary because our mind wants to know that whatever we're doing, whatever courageous step we're taking is going to be safe. And because that part of our brain doesn't know, that ego mind that lives in the subconscious, it doesn't know what the outcome's going to be like. So it's like, no, don't take that step. Don't move. Stay where you are. Like, stay in that comfort zone because it's predictable and it's known, right? And that's what the subconscious mind wants, is the known. It doesn't like the drama of the unknown. But the more often that we decide to step away and not take the courageous next step, what happens energetically in our body, okay? I'm talking about the energy of your body. Your body is made up of energy, and that energy flows throughout your entire body. It flows through what we call the meridian system in your body, according to Chinese medicine. And again, if you go back to episode 4, I talk a lot more in detail about that, okay? So this energy is supposed to be always in continuous flow, right? Like, just like energy in itself, like it's always flowing. But here's the kicker. When you continuously step away from the courage, you start to weaken the lung organ system because you're not taking the courage. You're not taking the step. You're not taking the risk. So you're depleting the courage energy that lies inside your lungs. And over time, if you keep doing that over and over and over and over again, eventually, well, for one thing, you have no courage to do anything. You're too afraid. And secondly, you've depleted that emotion from that organ system. And then it just has a cyclical effect, right? It's that compound ripple effect that happens. So you don't take the inspired action. You step away from the courage. And then you become less courageous. And then the less courageous you become, the less inspired you are to take another step forward. And so this cycle continues over and over and over again. So that's what's happening energetically. Emotionally, of course, right? Like mentally, we're like, well, I don't have the courage. I can't do this. And so we don't. But there's another level of what happens when you don't step into that courage. This is the physical part. So this is the part where, and again, in Chinese medicine, everything is connected, right? Body and mind is fully connected. The emotional, the mental, and the physical, and the energetic is all works together. So physically, we start to weaken the lungs. And so this is where sometimes you'll start to see people like with respiratory issues, with, like bronchitis, chest colds, asthma, right? Can't take deep breaths. Like, these are some of the physical manifestations that can show up. I mean, there's all kinds of physical manifestations that can show up in that area of the body. But you see, it all works together. So one way that you can tell if for some reason you're like, you know what, like I never seem to have the courage to do this. I don't know, and I don't understand why. If you look at your physical body, so this is sometimes for some people, especially if you're not really fully connected emotionally and mentally and energetically to yourself, you can look at your body and start to see, are there any repetitive patterns happening? Like, are you always getting a chest cold? Are you always having difficulty breathing? Like, are you having respiratory distress all the time? Like, you start to look at, is there anything in your body that is out of balance? And especially within that area. And if there is, if you start noticing, oh, well, you know what? Like, I always seem to end up with a chest cold. Now, here's the really super cool part. And this is where you got to, like really start to pay attention and create awareness. So if you can look back at your life and look at all the times where you wanted to take that next step forward, where you had the courage to do something and to act upon it, what happened? So what happened in your physical body? What happened like in your life? Like the reality of what happened? How did you feel emotionally, mentally? Like, look at that. But then I also want you to look at something else. I want you to look at, was there ever a time in your life where you were like, oh, I really want to do this. Like, this would be such a super cool thing to do. But I don't think I can do it. Like, I don't have the strength to do it. I don't have the courage to do that. It's not going to work out. So you talk yourself out of it, right? If you can remember an instance there, and then look at, well, how did your physical body respond? And if you have repetitive instances of when you wanted to step into that courage, but you didn't, what physical manifestation came out of that? Now, this might require you, like sitting down for a hot minute and actually going back through your life. And you may not find all the answers there. But if you don't find those answers, this is what I want you to do. Moving forward, I want you to start to think about these two concepts, okay? What happens when you do take the courage and what happens when you don't, okay? And then what happens in your physical body? Because what I have seen quite often, especially with a lot of my patients in my reflexology practice, is that they start to have the same physical manifestations coming up every time they decide to do something. And you see, your body is always communicating with you. Like, it's always communicating with you. It's just, are you paying attention? Are you aware? And most of the time we're not, right? Like, we're on autopilot and we're just going through the motions of the day and we don't check in. And you see, this is why I love my Yin Yoga practice so much. And this is one of the reasons why I love to teach Yin, is because it gives people the opportunity to pause and to reflect and to observe and notice, this is always coming up, or that's always coming up. So for you, if you start to notice, oh, yeah, I don't have any courage to take steps forward. I'm happy staying in that comfy zone here. I'm not taking the risk. I'm not taking any chances. This is where your yin practice for specifically the lung meridian channel can really help. And here's how it works, because I want to explain this so that you guys can really understand that. So the meridian channels in your body are like these garden hoses. And I've talked about this in other episodes as well. But each meridian has a channel, like a garden hose. And the lung meridian channel starts in the hands. Okay, it's one of the upper body meridian channels. And it moves up through the arms into the chest, into the lungs, and it pairs down through the large intestine, which is its paired organ. Okay? And so I want you to think about these garden hoses that are running up through your arms into your lungs. And when you're not taking those courageous steps, it's like you're putting your own kinks in the hose, right? Like you don't need anybody else to do it. You're doing it yourself. It's like you're picking up the hose and you're putting in a kink in it. And then you're trying to turn the water on and getting the water to flow, aka the energy to flow. But guess what's happening when it hits the kink? Well, it either literally stops and the flow does not continue upwards, or it kind of just like trickles through the hose, and eventually it kind of circles its way up. But man, is that a process. And every kink that you have creates imbalance and weakens that meridian channel and weakens that organ system. So in this case, we're talking about the lung organ system. Okay? So that's what happens. Now, when you come into yin yoga poses for the upper body, and I have tons, see, that's another thing. In meridian yin yoga, a lot of it is focused on the lower body because most of the meridian channels are in the lower half of the body. But we also have upper body meridians. So there were yin yoga poses that were specifically developed for the upper body. Now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the reason why the upper body yin poses were created, and this is mostly because in the Western world I'm talking about, not in the Eastern Asian culture. In the Western world, we sit a lot, we use our upper body in a way that is not very beneficial to us. So, we're hunched at the computer, or we're hunched over the desk, we're hunched on on the phone, we're hunched on our tablets, we're driving and we're hunched forward. So we really put a lot of physical stress on our upper body. And a lot of people hold a lot of their tension and their stress in their upper body, especially like their shoulders and neck. So, and their upper back. So there was a calling for upper body yin poses. So I don't negate the fact that, hey man, it's great. Stretch out that upper body because you know what? Like we are a culture where we are overstressed and we are really tight and tense, and we need to balance that out. So I'm not saying don't do yin for the physical stretch. I just don't focus on that because I know it's happening anyway. It's kind of just like the bonus, right? It's like the sprinkles on your sundae. So upper body yin poses, like I have tons of practices on my on-demand yoga platform that you can go and you can look at, and I'll link them up in the show notes. But, poses like supported fish, melting heart, broken wing, graceful bow, like these are all poses that stimulate the upper body meridian channels. So lung, but also heart. But these are poses that you could start to do to create balance back in that organ system, which eventually, guess what that's going to do? Take the kinks out, allow the energy to flow as it's meant to, and then guess what? Guess what the best part of that is? You got the courage back. And that's what you want. Because I'll tell you, sometimes we wonder why we don't have the courage to do something and we can't figure it out. Well, it could be because, you know what? There's been so many instances of you just not stepping into your power that you've weakened this organ system. Anyway, that is my take on it. And again, you are free to agree or disagree. But I also want to talk about another reason why we don't have the courage. And it's sometimes because, you know what? We've done something similar in the past and we didn't get the desired outcome. Yeah, didn't roll, didn't play out how we wanted it to. So that experience, whatever that outcome was viewed by the subconscious mind as a failure. And we don't like failures because to us, we think of failure as a weakness. Now, I want to talk about another view, another lens on why I think it's not a failure. It's actually something you learn. But let me go back to the fact that when we think it's a failure, are we wanting to take the courage to try to do something similar like that again? No, because guess what's going to happen? Your subconscious mind is going to kick in. Your nervous system is going to be on flight or fright. And your subconscious mind is going to start saying to you, are you crazy? We're not doing that again. Remember last time we tried that? Look what happened. We fell flat on our face. It was a complete fucking disaster. We failed. Big loser, right? The big L on our forehead. We're not going down there again. Everybody laughed at us. They thought we failed. No, that was way too painful. I can't do it again. So we talk ourselves out of it and we don't do it. But to me, it's never a failure. Because here's the thing. First of all, you had the courage to try. And sometimes when we're trying something and we've never done anything like that before, we don't know what's going to happen. We never 100% know what's going to happen. We can certainly have an idea of what we would like to happen. And in a lot of cases, whatever it is that we desire to happen actually does happen. But sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it plays out as this didn't roll the way we wanted it to. But guess what? You learned something. You learned what not to do next time you're in a similar situation. You can look back and go, remember we tried it this way last time. It didn't work. Okay, all right. Lesson learned. Let's try a different approach. Right? That's how I look at it. If you get what you desired, then great, you got the outcome, so that's the blessing, right? So it's either the blessing or the lesson that you get, but you get something positive out of it. But when we look at it as failure, then we never want to step into that courage again to try because we feel too wounded, like that scar is deep. This is where your yin practice can come in and help you. Because I want you to think, like I say this so many times, it's more subtle than acupuncture or acupressure, but it works on the same premise. So in acupuncture, you put a needle into a pressure point along the meridian channel and it stimulates balance. That's the goal, right? To bring balance back. Acupressure does the same thing, except you use the pressure of either fingers or dowels or other instruments are used. Yin Yoga, it's more subtle because it's more superficial, but the long-held stretch, I want you to think of the long-held stretch. What it does is it stretches out the fascia and connective tissue in your body where those meridian channels run through. So think of it like stretching out the garden hose and getting the kinks out. And when we get the kinks out, then things flow. That's balance. That's how it works in a nutshell. But you need the long held hold, like 2 to 5, sometimes 6 or 7 minutes, depending on the individual pose. And the other kicker is, and this is a really important part that I want to talk about in terms of the yin practice, is that really making sure that you're propped up properly. And what I mean by that is supporting your body with some type of prop, whether it's like a yoga block, a bolster, blankets, pillows, cushions, books, towels, whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy here. But when you prop your body up, a couple of things happen here. One, and this is really important, your body feels safer. Especially if you are someone who is super tight. If you have a lot of tension in your body. Do you think you're going to be able to hold something 2 to 5 minutes in stillness without any props and expect that your mind is going to be quiet and your body's going to be still? Hell no, that's not going to happen. You might enjoy the first 30 or 40 seconds going, oh yeah, man, does this stretch ever feel good? But then the reality kicks in. Oh, we're here for 5 minutes? This is starting to get kind of intense. This is getting really uncomfortable. This is maybe even bordering on painful. And I can't breathe deep. Well, guess what? When you're in that energy, you're not doing yourself any good. You're actually doing yourself more physical, mental, emotional, and energetic harm. So propping up is so important because it allows your body to feel safe. When your body feels safe, your mind feels safe, and then your nervous system feels safe. When your nervous system feels safe, that means it's in a more parasympathetic state. Rest and digest, or rest and repair is what we call it. And that is so crucial for being able to take the next steps forward with life, because we're now in an energy where we feel safe. And that's the thing. If you don't feel safe, you're not going to want to take action on anything. There's no way. Your nervous system is in flight or fright. It's too stressed out. Your subconscious mind is like screaming at you, aka your ego mind is screaming at you, at the conscious mind, and then you're listening to that subconscious mind and going, okay, well, we're not going to do that. But when you're propped up, your body relaxes, your mind quiets, there's less chatter, you can start to breathe more deeply, and of course that just has a compound effect, right? Then your body goes, oh, okay, we're breathing deeper here. All right, cool. Yeah, all right, I'm feeling more safe. Great, I'm feeling safer now. Oh, great, my body's relaxing more. Great, my nervous system is starting to soften. Great, my subconscious mind is getting quieter. My ego is getting quieter. Okay, all right, yeah, I'm feeling so much better. And you see, it just continues on and on and on. And this is one of the biggest parts about when people talk about manifesting and creating things. And this is where I talk about, the courage coming back in, right? Like if you want to manifest something in your life, first it happens in your mind, and then secondly, it happens in reality. But when it happens in the mind, the nervous system has to be following along that same vibe. AKA, this is a good idea and this feels safe, right? So one of the biggest things that I learned on my journey of creating my life of freedom, especially after, a 20-year abusive marriage to an alcoholic and, a massive health crisis in 2022, was that it's all about nourishing my nervous system. It's more about the act of being than it is about the act of doing. And I'll tell you, I used to be the queen of doing. In fact, it's something that I still really struggle with because I have an A-type personality and I have a lot of traits and qualities from my father, who was very driven, and it was always about doing, push, push, push. And that just leads to burnout and resentment. And it certainly creates a lot of imbalance in the meridian system in your body. Depletes your nervous system. And then you're operating from a completely dysregulated nervous system base, which that is not the right recipe for creating what you desire. You can't manifest anything out of lack. And when your nervous system is so dysregulated, you're in a lack energy, and lack only attracts lack. So you need to be in an abundant energy, and abundance creates abundance, right? But here's the thing, how do you get into that abundant state? It's actually about nourishing your nervous system. And this is where yin is so powerful for that. When you're properly propped up in the pose and your body can relax, then everything else follows along the same vibe. And then from that place where we've nourished the nervous system, we've quieted the ego mind, then guess what? We're in the right inspired emotional state. And then we can take the inspired aligned action, meaning we have the courage, the right courage. Sometimes we step into courage the wrong way. I'm just going to action my way through this. I'm just going to throw that screw into that round hole and it's going to fit no matter what. I'm just going to push and I'm going to push and I'm going to push and I'm going to just make it happen. Anybody out there can relate to that kind of vibe, that energy? I can. There have been so many times in my past where it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. I can do it. I've got it all to do it. And I clearly look back at those times, realizing now that was my ego actually talking to me. And the inspired aligned action that I took was not actually inspired, and it was certainly not aligned. And did I actually get the result I desired? Nope. But I learned a lesson. But you know what? It took me a long time to learn that lesson, multiple times over and over to learn that lesson. That you never take inspired action from a place where you are in such a dysregulated state in your nervous system. You've got to feel safe. And when you feel safe, you'll have that courage. You will. And it won't feel so freaking scary to actually move forward and to take that next step. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of this. And you see, when you come into your yin practices and you start to nourish specific channels depending on what your emotional state is like, then guess what? Like, it's becoming easier and easier for you to create the life that you want, a life that is full and rich of freedom and fulfillment. Because that's really what we want in life, is we want to be free. And yeah, we'll have pain in our life. Pain is inevitable, but we don't have to have the suffering that goes along with it. But we're certainly darn good at doing that, or at least I have been. And you know, I want to say that this is a journey, okay? Like, this is not, okay, I've done this a few times, check off the list, I'm good. Because guess what? That's not the way it's going to happen. This is daily practice. You have an ego mind that is always going to come in and jump in and try to give you its viewpoint. It's going to try and put its set of lenses over yours. But it's up to you to take them off and to put on a pair of lenses that actually serve you. And Yin Yoga has really helped me in being able to be that courageous woman. I mean, honestly, Yin was what helped me get out of my abusive marriage. It gave me the courage. And let me tell you, did it ever take a lot of fucking courage to walk away from a 20-year marriage? Yeah, a lot. And some people, have said to me, why didn't you just leave sooner? Well, it's not as easy as that. And I'm sure there's probably some people out here listening to this episode that can relate to that. But that's not a topic that, I'm going to dive into in this episode. What I really want this episode to do for you is to help you to understand the connection between your emotional state, your physical body, your nervous system, and what's happening in your mind, and the result of what ends up as your reality, right? Like, we build our life based on a foundation. Like, if you think of a house has a foundation, right? And we're inside the house and there's walls. And each one of these walls is like a belief that we have. And the belief is just thoughts that we've heard over and over and over again, whether it's like thoughts that we've created ourselves, or whether it's thoughts that, like came from our parents or siblings or society, whatever. But it's just something that we keep thinking over and over again. But not every single wall, aka belief, has to be there to hold you up. Just like the foundation in a house can get wobbly and the walls can get wobbly and there can be cracks in the foundation and holes in it, so can your belief system. But we build our life based on the house and that foundation. And a lot of the times, the beliefs that we have were never ours to begin with. They were somebody else's that were instilled upon us. And this is not to blame or shame or be resentful towards whoever it is that instilled those beliefs on us. Because, as my father used to tell me all the time, you know what, kiddo? You just do the best that you can with the tools that you have in your toolbox. And that's true. That's what we do. We just do the best that we can with what we got in the moment. But it doesn't mean that you can't look at that toolbox and you can't look at those tools and go, I don't really need those tools anymore. I can actually take them out and put in another set that are going to work better for me, and start to build a better toolbox. This is basically what like rewiring or programming your subconscious mind is doing. And some people can do it quite easily by just changing their thought patterns. I know for me, some of the deeper ingrained beliefs I can't do just by simply rewiring my mind. I actually need more tools. And one of my tools is Yin Yoga. So is acupressure, so is reflexology, meditation, breath work. Those are basically my 5 tools that I use for everything. So acupressure, reflexology, breath work, meditation, and Yin Yoga. Those are my tools that help me. That help me to create the life that I want to have, and to help me break down the beliefs that don't serve me. And they all work in their own unique way. And I'm not suggesting that you have to do them all. But I'll tell you, when you combine them all, it's pretty powerful. And it also helps you to rewire and reprogram your mind a lot quicker. But here's the thing, you got to do the work. And it's not one of those, okay, you know what, Kimberly, I did this for a week, I'm good now, right? No. Because it's always a work in progress, just like you are always a work in progress, and you're on a journey. And there is no final destination. There's just this continuous movement of growth and healing and evolution. And so I have 2 courses that I actually created. The first one is my limiting beliefs course. And it is basically a course to help you reprogram your subconscious mind using these 5 tools. And it's really powerful because what these tools do is they help you to get into a regulated nervous system state. And when you're in that state, this is where you can start to break down what does not serve you anymore and start to bring in what does. And then my second course is called Emotions. So emotions, if you think about that word, emotion, flow, movement, right? Emotions are meant to flow through you. Just like energy flows through you. Just like cars flow on the highway. So do your emotions. And in Chinese medicine, when we don't allow the emotions to flow, it creates distress, imbalance, and potentially physical disease. And so this course is all about talking about the emotions, the relationships of your thoughts and your feelings, and all ties in with Chinese medicine. And so right now, these courses are $149 each. And until January 21st, I'm offering them for $25 each. Why? Well, a few reasons. First of all, I launched this podcast less than a week ago, and I already have so many incredible people following me, and I am so grateful for everyone who has subscribed to the podcast already. I'm really honored. Secondly, my episode number 4 ranked number 1 across all platforms. This is something I'm still in shock and in awe of, and I am so grateful for. And so I will tell you, when I was going through the abuse in my marriage, I didn't have all these tools. And I was basically navigating this thing called life in this abusive marriage by myself. And I'm so grateful I had Yin, because I say this all the time, it literally saved my life. Like Yin Yoga saved my life and has saved my life a couple of times. And so if I had had all the tools that I have now back then, and this isn't a regret thing at all, I don't regret. Everything always happens in divine timing as far as I'm concerned. And everything happens always for us, never to us. But I want to give back because I know what it's like to not have tools and to be trying to do all of this by myself. And I am going to say as a disclaimer, these courses are not to substitute or replace like medical advice or therapy, but they are certainly meant to help support you. And that's what I'm here to do, is to help support you. So I'm going to link in the show notes the promo code for these 2 courses, so you can get them both for $50 instead of $149 each. And you have lifetime access to them. There's also embodiment work in each of these courses, so it's not just like me sitting there and you watching me talk, because I'll tell you that I can talk all I want, but if I don't give you the tools to embody the teachings that I'm giving you, then it's just not going to land. I want you to experience Yin and all of these other tools in their power so that they can help you create a life that is rich in fulfillment, that's in alignment with your heart and your soul, and where you're living your best life. You're free. That's what I want for you. So take the courage. Take that step. Hit the button. Download the courses and start today. And if you have any questions about them, you can always send me a DM through Instagram, or when you purchase the courses, you'll have my email address. You can always email me. I love questions. There's never any wrong or silly question, just the one that you don't ask. So again, you have until January 21st, 2025 to grab these 2 courses for $25 each, Ditching Limiting Beliefs and Emotions, and I'll link them up in the show notes. If you want to practice with me on my on-demand platform, I'll link that up there. You can grab a class, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much again for pressing play. I am here to help you create that yinning at life vibe. So until next episode. Oh, and just to remind you, this podcast is not a substitute or replacement for any kind of professional therapy or medical advice. I'm just a yin yogi at heart who's sharing her life experiences with the people in this world. And this is what my legal team needs me to tell you.